approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you, ma'am. Okay. All right, public comment? Yeah, Joe, there ain't nobody, okay. All right, action items, number 1, election of board representatives to Clackamas Regional Water Supply Commission, CRWSC Board.
All right, so sticking with our new format, staff will give a presentation real briefly on that, and then you can, someone can make a motion if they so choose. I'm the lucky one that gets to start with this, and so just as part of our agreement with Sunrise Water Authority, where we formed the Clackamas Regional Water Supply Commission, each entity appoints 3 people to serve on the CRWSC board. That's an annual appointment that we do. To the season to do that once again. So our current representatives on the CRWSC are Commissioner Andrew, Commissioner French, and Commissioner Kalani. And so this would be for a one-year term. I think the only thing I would note is that we do, not that it influences who is on this, but it's just to be aware of that we do alternate who's chair between organizations, who's chair and secretary, and who's vice chair and treasurer. So this will be, this coming meeting, we'll elect the chair, and it'll be someone from Sunrise's term to be the chair. So that's all I have to share on that.
Oh, and so also, it's supposed to be quarterly meetings, but it's been a lot less. I was chair this past year, and this will be the second meeting I chair, will be in August. So sometimes there's no agenda items for it, so just, is there anybody, I mean, I guess before we move, we should find out who
Well,
else might be interested.
we don't even know if the CRWSC is gonna last long.
Yeah, did you want to
Well,
address that?
So I think we're probably, well, it's gonna last,
A while.
it's gonna, yeah, there's nothing changing in the near term or
Okay.
anything on that, so. But yeah, what the last time that the CRWSC meeting, CRWSC board met, they did ask for Wade and myself, the 2 general managers, to kind of start pulling together information on what does the future look like, and so we're still working on that, but it's a process that took many years to put together, so I don't want to rush anything. So. But that said, regardless, you need to appoint 3 people, and so that's the.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, if we could just get a thumbnail sketch of the purpose of the commission.
I think it's in your commissioner handbook, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
I think it is.
Yeah, I think it's in your commissioner handbook.
well,
So, yeah, the real quick is we have, this was an entity that was formed. Some of the major components of that is there's a water supply arrangement in that where we have committed to provide Sunrise to the members of the CRWSC up to 10 million gallons a day of water. And so there's that issue that's very valuable and important. Obviously there's revenue that's received from that. The second piece of that is the opportunity to share resources and staffing. So for instance, we'll provide some staffing assistance as it relates to water quality and procurement and payroll and just went blank. IT, and some of those different functions. And then there are some agreements that we've actually, I think on some of our emergency preparedness planning software and stuff, those are things that we've jointly purchased. And can you think of anything else, Carol? That's kind of the major pieces.
well, I guess we'd have to figure out if the people who are on it now want to stay, or.
I'd like to stay on it. You're chairman, so you almost have to stay on it, so
I
you can
wanna
run the
stay on
meeting
it.
till we get somebody
No,
else.
I,
And Rusty, what about, or no,
Oh,
you was
I
on
think
it,
he was on
you was
it.
on it. You
No,
wanna
I'll stay. I didn't realize I was still on it.
Yeah.
I thought I was gone
You
after.
wanna have one more go around?
Yeah.
Okay. I move that we keep the status quo.
is that okay with the two new commissioners?
Second motion.
Okay, that okay with both of the other commissioners?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, action item, we have to do a roll call vote, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm learning.
Commissioner Ansher?
Yes.
Commissioner Danell?
Yes.
Commissioner French?
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison?
Yes.
Commissioner Klein? Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, second, commissioner assignments. Depending on how well I'd like to know. I've spoken with all of you. I finally got a hold of Hugh, and so the list that is printed here is, everybody wants to kind of do those, and everybody seems to be in agreement. Rusty will be on the North Clackamas Water Commission. I'll stay with Sunrise, and Rusty's gonna do South Fork. Hugh's gonna do C4, and then the three of us will stay on the CRWSC. Tessa's gonna break in with Clackamas Fire, and everything else stays the same, and then Naomi, you're still on regional water
Regional
provider.
water providers, yeah.
So, is there any discussion on that? Everybody okay?
Okay, and this one doesn't require a motion because it's actually
Right.
up to the board president to appoint these
Well,
positions.
damn it, that's what you get, so.
Good job.
If for some reason I were ever to not be able to attend a regional water providers consortium, I could ask one of the other commissioners to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's preferred that we have that discussion at a meeting and appoint an alternate for you,
Okay.
just to be, or at least have the board chair appoint an alternate,
Okay.
board president, sorry.
Okay. All right, moving on, item 3, easement approval of a water line easement donation from Lake Road Medical Building. Joe!
Walking distance from my house.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
I don't have a lot to add to what was written in the staff report. Just to say that this is a real estate action, and it's being driven by the landowner, trying to clean up a legacy issue that they're, with their property. So we took a look at what they were asking and find that there's no detrimental effect to our ability to operate our system. The two small easements that we're asking you about tonight. One is a replacement for the public utility easement that they wish to vacate. That is a public utility and access easement that is shared by all utilities, so we're not the sole arbiter of whether or not that is vacated. The other parcel for the easement, when the original water line was installed, they did not include an easement for the fire hydrant that extended beyond the easement that was provided for the water system. So this is a good opportunity to clean that up as well.
Okay, discussion, questions?
We need a motion first. You gave a staff
Oh, right.
report, and so now we need a
Oh, okay.
motion.
Okay, I move,
Or, yeah, I know, change is hard.
I move to approve the donated water line easement from Lake Road Medical Building LLC and authorize the general manager to sign the easement document and to consent to the vacation of the access and public utility easement and authorize the general manager to provide adequate notification of same to interested parties.
Second motion.
Now, is there any discussion? Comments, questions?
Joe, I just have a question.
Sure.
Why would we not want to do this?
I can't think of any. We're, the addition of the easement in green of my exhibit B in the packet really makes us whole with regard to the water line that lies under it. And that is a short section from the water main to the water meter, and it protects our right, which was originally within public utility.
Thank you. Makes sense.
Okay.
Commissioner Ansher?
Yes.
Commissioner Danell?
Yes.
Commissioner French?
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison?
Yes.
Commissioner Klein?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thanks, comments, Joe. Number 4, potential recruitment contract for engineering associate / technician top.
Thank you again, Commissioners. This is something that you don't see all the time, and so I'm going to take a minute to explain what we're asking. The reason this is coming before you as it relates to an agreement with an agency that's helping us with some recruiting is because there's a potential of the amount of the contract to exceed my authority. And so this is why I wanted to spend some time to talk and get your approval. I don't think it's, we've talked a number of times where CRW has been in the process of trying to recruit for some engineering positions, an engineering tech and an engineering associate position, that we have the 2 vacancies. I'll just be blunt right now, the market is incredibly difficult finding qualified individuals that have these background and skills that we need. We've actually went to the extension of trying to help or have some recruiting agencies help us. And we actually have 3 that we've been working with. One of the agencies is actually, they specialize in water and have actually been providing, starting to provide some candidates that we would like to progress through the process more. They do have a slightly different process though. Instead of just placing the candidate, they actually have a process where they do a temp to hire process. And so we would actually have them provide this person for a 6-month period. And then after that 6-month period, we have the option to hire them. We do have the opportunity to do something sooner between that 3 to 6 month period, but we would pay a placement fee associated with that. So what we're asking for is for you to allow us to enter into a contract with Spencer Ogden to allow us to use this temp to hire process. And this all assumes that they actually provide us a candidate that we are willing to consider and hire. So just because you're approving this doesn't necessarily mean that we're actually going to use them in the future. But unfortunately with these instances, what we're finding is that we need to act quickly as far as making sure we get someone started. So again, the reason this is coming before you is because it exceeds my spending authority of $50,000, where there's a potential if a person was brought on for a 6-month period that the cost would be closer to 65.
I had a question. What exactly is, what is a tech and an engineering associate? So that's below a full engineer?
Yeah, so we have our professional engineers, and so an
Okay.
engineering associate, that's somebody that has their I can't remember what the designation, the OIT, EIT, thank you. I'm thinking OIT, that doesn't sound right. Engineering and training. So they haven't reached their professional engineering, they need certain qualifications to get to that point.
Okay.
The engineering tech position, that was actually kind of an inspector position, inspector plus position, so it was somebody that was out in the field a lot more, did a lot more inspection and so on. Although we would expect both entities to, or both people to do that. So does that provide enough?
Yeah, thank you.
But an EIT is on track to become a certified engineer?
Some they can, some choose not to. We have a long-term employee that's in the EIT status. Actually, that's the level that they've wanted to achieve and have provided great value. Actually, a person that's recently retired many years was at that status. So you don't have to go to the next level.
Okay.
Okay. One more question. If we work with Spencer Ogden and we take this person on as a temp for 6 months and decide at the end of 6 months not to hire them, do we have any obligation to either Spencer Ogden or the employee?
No, we just have
No,
whatever
okay.
time we've spent.
And we would expect to get some valuable work product out of that person during that time period?
Frankly, if we're not, they're not gonna last 6 months.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Okay, so I'll make a motion. So I move to approve a contract with Spencer Ogden to provide employee placement services for a not-to-exceed amount of $65,000.
Second the motion?
Any discussion?
Any more discussion?
I'll call the question.
Commissioner Ranger?
Yes?
Commissioner Danell?
Yes.
Commissioner French?
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalani?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Consent agenda, those payroll, cash position and transfers, and surplus. Carol?
It's consent, so you can,
Consent, oh.
unless one of
Yeah.
the commissioners chooses to pull something from the consent
Oh, okay,
agenda, you
is there
can just do
anything
the
on those
motion and
three
go.
items, or questions or discussion? No?
And we can do this by voice, I guess.
Yeah.
Do we need to just move the question?
Oh, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second the motion?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent agenda passes. Quarterly report. Carol, you
Good evening. I will be presenting to you our quarterly report, and this is through the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2019. We operate on a biennial budget. Fiscal 19 is the second year of said budget. And so I'm going to kind of tell you where we are, but I'm also going to provide a caveat that as we get to the end of the year, we have a lot of adjusting entries to do. We have certain things that we do at the end of the year that we don't do at the end of every month or at the end of every quarter. We'll take a look at any dollars that we have in a prepaid account and see if we need to move those. So we do have several entries that are still made. These are not the final numbers, but they're also not too far off from the final numbers. So we should be at 100% of the biennial budget at this point. Our retail water sales are at almost 109%. When we're talking revenue, being over budget is good. So that translates into close to $2 million greater than the adjusted budget. Now, Commissioner Donnell hasn't heard me say this, but I know all the rest of you have. We do conservative estimating for revenue. I don't want to anticipate more revenue than we're gonna get and then spend to that level. So we do conservative revenue estimates. So if you look at the total general fund revenue, which would include new service installs and the rent that we get for this building and all of that, we're at about 108% of that total budget. So on the revenue side, it's good. On the expense side, it's actually good too. So personnel services, we're at 96.3%. We still have a few adjusting entries, but we were very fortunate. The end of June was also the end of a pay period, so we just have some minor adjustments that'll go into personnel services. The materials and services is at about 87.1%. So that means, you know, we spent money on what we needed to. We didn't hold back. We got done what we needed to. But since a lot of our infrastructure is underground, we don't know how many main breaks or issues that we're gonna have. So we budget some things in that category for just in case. And so we have come in easily under budget and happy to see that. Capital outlay, we've talked about quite a few in the other quarters, and I believe at the end of the third quarter, we were barely over 30%. But capital outlay, by its nature, is kind of chunky. You can spend some money faster. So I think we've had a dump truck delivered and a forklift, and so those kind of started getting us up to that level where we expected based on the items that we had budgeted for. So again, as I said, not all of the entries have been made. We are still getting ready to, reconcile some accounts and make sure that we're ready for the audit. We will share a final accounting with the board, with the audit presentation, which I anticipate to be in December. We do have our audit scheduled for the first week of November with the staff coming out to do the field work. So that's the general fund. I'm happy to pause now if anybody has any questions about what you've heard or what you've seen in your packet. And if not,
I have a question. So I really like that it's 2 million higher than the adjusted budget, and it sounds like you're a very conservative budgeter, so that's definitely a plus. What, other than being conservative, was there anything else that factored into contributing to that overage of cash?
we never know what the weather's gonna be. And so we do have concerns that we could have a summer with curtailment, which would have a significant impact on the revenue. And again, I don't wanna budget expenditures to meet a higher level of revenue. What we've discovered, in fact, I was just looking at this more today, and Todd and I were talking about it yesterday, our consumption is so steady. And, you know, it's just, I mean, you look at it, even now where, you know, some people are seeing some reductions in their revenues, because we have a significant portion of commercial accounts, they've already figured out how to make the most effective use of water. And so they're gonna be really stable. And where we see the fluctuation is on some of the residential accounts. We do have some, you know, people at water. It'll be interesting to see. I don't anticipate being as far ahead of the curve this year because it's August and we had sprinkles this morning. So the consumption, I think, this year is gonna be a little bit lower. So in the next biennium, we'll probably still come in above budget, but I don't anticipate it to be to this extent.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so now we're gonna take a look at some of the other funds, and the good news stories is our system development charges. We set up over 100 new accounts this year, and a significant portion is the Abernathy Landing development, but there's also a new development on the north, a couple of new developments on the north side of the district. So this is the most we've done since I've been here. I think my first year here, it was more like 35. So to do 100 new services in fiscal 19. And this impacts our system development revenue, charges revenue. We came in at 241% of the budget. And, but it also impacts on the general fund side as well, because we do earn some revenue on the meter installs and that kind of stuff. So, but anyway, 241% of the budget, which is great. We will, in the upcoming budget, we are gonna use some of those system development charges reserves for appropriate capital projects. And in the budget, I said that I proposed $2 million, which was approved and adopted, and our ending fund balance is gonna be, I think, around $2.5 million. So we're still gonna have reserves in there. We're not using any reserves anticipated from money coming in the upcoming biennium. So we'll always be kind of behind on that. We're gonna collect SDCs in one biennium and spend them as appropriate in the following biennium.
I have a question about SDC. So when they build a new housing project, and it's already within our district, so they're automatically gonna get water, so who's paying the, is it the builders or the people that come into the homes? And the people who come into the homes, do they have to call you, or is it just automatic? I'm just wondering.
The developer, so whoever builds it, if it's an owner builder or if it's a developer doing a whole residential neighborhood, they will pay the system development charges.
Okay,
We collect a system development charge when they need a meter,
Yeah.
so in order to get occupancy and stuff, and to do the
Yeah.
plumbing, you need a meter, so.
And that's
The
prior,
builder, normally.
prior to an occupancy permit, correct?
Correct.
That's
Okay.
correct. And we collect that money from the customer, whoever it happens to be, prior to installing the meter.
okay.
How much is the system development charge, and is it forecasted out for a certain, our assumption for a certain amount of time? Is that cost passed on to ratepayers?
That's a really good question. So the system development charge is to help growth pay for itself.
Right, okay.
And we are using a pretty old methodology, but we do have some dollars in this upcoming biennial budget to do a system development charges rate study.
Okay.
This is a perfect time to do this because we've just done the water system master plan, so we kind of know we have projected demands on the system. Because when you calculate the system development charges, you have reimbursement costs, so that's somebody new coming in using existing capacity, so they're kind of repaying the system. And then you have improvement costs, so that's when we need to do stuff to accommodate new people. And so it gets divided up. So we will be doing that rate study. You will hear much more about that when we get there. And we will see what that changes to our system development charges. Ours right now are, we're doing like 50.
Low.
Yeah, low.
Okay.
About $5,700, $5,800, I don't remember, I can look it up on the internet real quick.
Okay.
But,
You don't have to, well, I just,
but it's, we are very low in the region, and, so compared to a lot of our neighbors. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like, and again, good timing, because we have a water system master plan that is hot off the press, that we can use that data to help inform the rate setting.
so, oh, sorry.
Is the rate study a comprehensive one, or is it simply to look at rates for system development?
At this time, we're just looking at system development charges. We are in year 6 of the 8-year rate plan that we implemented.
So we
And
don't need that.
So we're gonna do 2 more years, but during, before we get to the end. So this first year of this biennium and the second year, in the next budget, we will include rate study for water rates.
Okay, thank you.
So, just on that point as well, I recently went through that, or process of it on an advisory capacity, for sewer. And what they did was they pulled together, staff, and then also representatives from each of the areas that, their service went through.
Service area.
Provided, yeah, their
Yeah.
service area. And so it was a pretty hot topic, because there were folks from the Home Builders Association there, and then there were, public officials representing each area, and then there was the county. And so, I would recommend that we do something similar to that, just, I'm sure you've already thought about that, but I think that way we've got the community saying, well, this is what we should pay, because you've got the home builders, of course, who want to pay less, and then you've got the ratepayers that are already existing who don't want those costs passed on to them. And so,
The good news on water is that there's pretty established methodology,
Yeah, it's
and
pretty
how
Got it,
prescriptive.
okay.
and it's based on some engineering documents and so on, so it's not as, a lot of times it's not quite as volatile an issue. And then, plus, we also have to keep in mind, we talked about, we had 100 new services, which is, and we're more typically about 35, so frankly, it's not a huge, it doesn't impact a large number of folks. I don't know what Sunrise does a month on new services, or a year,
Well, it's
way more than
300.
average.
Yeah, 300 or so.
300, yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so my point is it's important, and we'll do some outreach, but we don't have a lot of people.
I see what you're
Yeah.
saying.
So,
I'm just more on the side of the fence where I don't think it should be passed on to existing ratepayers, so I think
yeah,
that,
so the system development charge,
Cost.
just to be clear, is only on new meters and stuff, so.
right, but it's also that, let's say that there's work that needs to be done that's surpassed what they've paid for that system development charge. Then the ratepayers are paying for that didn't build that development or move in, and
Oh,
so,
I see what you're saying.
yeah, so like future costs and forecasting,
Yeah.
and yes, keep it low, because home builders come in and they pay this, and it's a revenue source for us, but as an existing ratepayer, do we really want to be paying for that new subdevelopment, for example, but, so it's one of those,
That's why we hire the professionals.
yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, let's look at the CIP fund. In this fund, you're gonna see that our spending is kind of low compared to what we budgeted for the biennium. And so I wanted to talk about a couple of these things. And so I kind of listed them by the numbers that we included in the biennial budget. So project one is, we always include this, it's for any ODOT work, city or county work that impacts our water infrastructure underground. Somebody wants to repave a road, we might have to move a pipe if they have to, you know, have a sidewalk cut or something. So we always put dollars in for that.
So I'm gonna stop you for a second. So I notice you're all looking at, you got a different slide than what's
Oh, you're right.
there. So that is a different slide. We'll acknowledge it.
Oh.
Same information,
Oh.
but it's just grouped differently on the handout.
Oh, okay.
So on the handout, it gives the final budget number,
Yeah, I hadn't even noticed that yet.
and then it's grouped up a little bit different. So I don't know if you want to talk from the slide.
I
Since that's what
thought
they
that
have.
we,
We just have the budget, we don't have the other two
oh,
columns.
okay. And how did I get this one? There, okay. Okay, so, the ODOT one, again, we put in an estimate based on information that we have from the county or cities on road work that's gonna be done. So in looking at that, in P1, P5, which was the Curtis Court water line, and P9, in those three projects, we had savings of $772,000. Things just came in under budget, particularly on the pump station, but even the Curtis Court water line came in way under the forecast. Carver Bridge, which was line item 2 in the budget, was, we had $572,000 budgeted in the CIP, we moved that to backbone. So we did spend money, we do have a pipe under the Carver Bridge, but we didn't spend it here. And then we had some items that were unspent, they've either been postponed and put into the next budget cycle. Some of them, we did some design work initially, and then postponed the actual construction into the 1921 adopted budget. And then the Bradley Road, P7 was a developer project. The developer needed an 8-inch pipe, our plans called for a 12-inch pipe. So we had the developer build the 12-inch pipe that we needed. We provided them some system development charge credits as well as paying for the difference. But we also charged them the regular CRW cost of inspection and all of that. So there was about $100,000 of revenue to us, a reduction in the system development charges cash, not the revenue, and then we paid that additional piece, which was about $250,000. So now looking at the CIP bond construction fund, in this one, we're at about 100%. And we still have some items to enter, like the overhead for the final quarter. So I anticipate that we may go over budget. And the reason, one of the reasons we're going over budget is because some of the projects this spring moved along faster than we thought. Hatton Road is one of them. We have money in this biennial budget that we're currently in, and we spent some of that before June 30th because the contractor was just able to move along faster.
Well, that's good news, isn't it?
It's good,
I mean,
except that
other
the
than our
other person
budget,
tell me
but-
that I spent more than my budget.
But it's in the next year's budget, right? So
Not the
we'll
end
be
of the world,
ahead.
they will,
Yeah,
But we got more goods and services than expected.
yeah,
Yes,
that's a
we did.
plus.
So the project was, I mean, nearly finished by June 30th, right, Joe? I mean, there's still some cleaning up, tidying up. It's not a closed project yet, but the dollar amount that we put in the 1921 budget, we spent some of that in the 17-19 budget.
Yeah, so we're clear, it's a timing issue,
Yeah,
it's not a dollar issue.
Got it.
yeah.
So unfortunately, it looks like a dollar issue because we've asked for authorization to spend X amount of dollars this biennium, but we had to try to figure out, estimate where a project's gonna be in that process. And so some of the projects actually were farther along in that process by that time. And so you'll see we've put the money in the next budget, which should be.
And it's, this is a challenge that we always have. These construction projects do not align with a fiscal year. So if the work gets done on June 28th, and we didn't think it was gonna be done till August 1st, then we're gonna incur those costs
Right.
in the prior fiscal year. So, I communicate really well with the engineering department so that we kind of know those things, but when you hire a third-party contractor, if they have good weather and things move along well, they could be ahead of schedule, just the same as if they, if there are things that can delay them, they can end up behind schedule.
And we accrue those costs? In other words, when we get the bill, that goes into that period?
Correct. Any work that was done prior to June 30th will be in the fiscal 19 number, not the fiscal.
Any work that was done or any work that was billed?
Well, it's any work that was done, but they bill pretty much monthly, and so we do follow up with the contractors to say, have you billed us for the work through June?
Oh,
And so
okay, so there may be a 30-day reconciliation?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And so that's why here we are, August 8th, and I'm saying the numbers aren't quite all there yet, but they're close.
Right, right.
They're very
As
close.
long as we can afford it, right?
Yeah. Certainly not a cash flow issue.
Excellent, excellent.
So,
They finished the work ahead of schedule, we could afford it. I can't see a negative there.
so that's my presentation on the fourth quarter, and like I said, we'll have finalized numbers to the board in December when the audit is presented.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Carol.
Yeah.
Joe?
I'd like to clarify something
Sure.
with regard to Commissioner's question about the STCs. She asked how much are they?
Yeah.
The real answer is it's different for every meter size.
Okay.
I can't give you specific numbers. A smaller meter will, the STC will be lower than for a larger meter. So when the rate study is done, they'll take that into account as well.
And that totally makes sense.
Yeah, I
It is.
Yeah,
kind
throwing
of
out a
jokey
number is not really a number.
answer, and I feel comfortable with leaving it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Management report?
All right, the home stretch here. So in your packet for agenda item 6 is the manager report. There's just a few things that I wanted to highlight, but before I get there, I do want to talk about the folder that you have, because there's a variety of items that are in the manila folder. So you have your monthly report, first off, that you get every month. A couple things just to kind of highlight or note is on page 5, on the bottom right corner, we have our customer consumption. And so that kind of illustrates visually what Carol was talking about, how our consumption is kind of right on every year. It is rather a unique feature of the district and so on. So this is a visual that kind of illustrates how these lines really track well with each other over the time. The other thing too, I'd point your attention to is on page 6. We talked about the new service meter installations. And so if you look at that, whatever that color is, that goldenrod color, that's for fiscal year 2019. And so when Carol talked about all the additional meters, that's another visual representation. You can see there's a lot more meters going in fiscal year 19, and the blue is the fiscal year 2020, and you can see we're off to a good start on July as well, so progress there. The only other thing I'll point out is on page 9 is your more detailed report as it relates to the backbone phase 1 projects. For the August work session, we're planning on kind of digging more in depth as far as our reporting mechanisms as it relates to our capital projects in general. So we'll be providing you some more information, and just having that discussion as far as what information is useful, kind of point out, you know, the information we're trying to provide and the value to you. So we'll be working on that at the next work session as well. Also, in addition, in your packet, the monthly report is your copy of the newsletter that's going to go in the next billing statement. So there's a variety of information in that. I will note we are including the Clackamas River water providers messaging that the whole region is doing as far as the fish on the run, irrigation run information. So we have a lot more information that's available on the website, and try to encourage people to kind of think about how they use water, especially in that late summer, early fall period when it impacts, or when fish flows are a concern. And then one item that I will point to is on the back page, we have the We Love Clean Rivers project, where they're hosting their 16th annual Down the River Cleanup. Extremely fun event. If you're looking for a volunteer opportunity, it's a lot of fun. I think last year we had close to 25% of our staff actually participate in the event. It's on a Sunday, September 8th. We actually use Riverside Park as one of the parks that they bring trash to and
Collection
dumpster
site.
down there. Yep. People with scuba gear and everything else coming out of there. You don't have to have scuba gear. You can stay on land and all that too. So point out that. Also, thought it would be helpful, Commissioner French and Commissioner Donnell had an opportunity to go to an SDAO, Special Districts Association board of training, but we thought, you know, this would be helpful for all of you to have.
Yeah.
I realized, actually, I give Bob Stearns your credit where he's like, oh, you shared that with them, right? And it's like, oh, no, I haven't, so I probably should. So, helpful document that we can touch on. And then there's a couple newsletters, one from the Regional Water Providers Consortium and one from Clackamas Water Providers. So make you aware of that. As for some information just to highlight in the written report, I've already mentioned Clackamas River Water Providers and the messaging that we're starting with. I will point out in the meeting this week, I officially became chair of that organization.
Congratulations.
Which
Yeah,
I appreciate
congratulations.
well. I appreciate your support on that. I think it's whoever looked up, I think, is more of a challenge. And then we are going to be hosting, as it relates to the Regional Water Providers Consortium, I think kind of a unique event is we're going to be hosting at Riverside Park an emergency equipment drill. So a variety of the water providers who have emergency distribution systems or emergency treatment systems will be bringing it to the park, and we're going to walk everybody through the exercise more as a regional perspective, make sure everybody's kind of familiar with the equipment. So we'll have staff involved with that. We will be closing the park that day for use.
Do you want us to come to that?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just making you aware of it.
Okay.
So.
You'll have to get us name tags or badges. If you
Yeah. Yeah, it's more of a functional, you know, how does things work, and
Okay.
it's more of a training, that type of thing, so. Item 3, I do want to spend a moment on, because it is something we talked about in the budget process, and you hear a lot about it in the news as far as FERS liability issues, and so one of the things that we had talked to the board and budget committee actually about is some creative ideas on how we could maybe reduce our liability as associated with FERS moving forward. And so the budget committee approved, and then the board adopted the budget that included the ability for us to pay off this transitional liability. At that time, we thought was about $675,000. So based on that approval and the fact that you had authorized us to go ahead and execute that as part of the reoccurring payments approval that you did at the July meeting, we got the information back from PERS on what that transitional liability was, and it's closer to 267,000 or 60. Yes.
600.
Well, I'm sorry, 600. Yeah, what's?
Close.
I'm gonna put my glasses on. Yeah, 600. I wish it was that.
Yeah.
626,000, and so we'll make that payment this month, And then what that will translate into is a reduction in our PERS rates of about 2.85% beginning in September. So that roughly equates to about $100,000 savings every year in our PERS costs. So just one thing, obviously we were fortunate to have that money available to do that, and so that was good, but we're gonna reap some long-term benefit from that. And so thank you very much to Carol for working on that and presenting that as part of the budget process and tracking down how that's gonna work. Just touching on emergency management, he's not here, but I wanted to at least thank Don for all of his work on the radio system project. This has been a very consuming effort, but you know, good news is we have our VHF radio system up and running. We have our towers and everything's linked and working, and so now we're in that educational process of teaching people how to use the radios and encouraging that use more often. Good news is this gives us real robust communication ability, especially in emergencies. So a lot of kudos go to Don for all of his efforts, and I'm sure he's happy to move on to other projects now. So, and then last, just in the looking ahead, there's a variety of things at the end. I will be out of the office for one day on August 22nd. So Carol will be serving, be available in my absence. I will be local, so I'll have a phone with me. I just won't be available all the time. Also, we talked about the agenda setting meeting for Commissioners French and Commissioner Anger will be at 4 p.m. on August 26th, which happens to also be the same evening of our work session. So you get double duty that day. We also have the Clackamas Regional Water Supply Commission meeting that's scheduled for August 29th at 4 p.m. and it will be held here. And so we don't anticipate an extensive agenda, but it'll have some updates as it relates to what's going on with respect to the water supply agreements and stuff, very cursory information. And then we also have to select the chair and vice chair and secretary and treasurer at that meeting as well. Just a reminder that we will be closed for Labor Day on September 2nd, and that we are kind of changed around the September board meeting schedules, which I appreciate. That's been able to accommodate my schedule, and so we have noticed publicly that the September board meeting will be held on Wednesday, September 4th at 6 p.m. So it's a different time, and then the work session has also been modified to 26th of September, right? Okay. Let's see. One other thing is we will have an August work session, and at that work session, we will have an executive session to talk about property items. So that wanted you to be aware of that. And then last but not least, we have, as the board's aware, we have a budget committee vacancy. And so that is something that we post on our website and advertise for. We haven't had any interest in it, but that's frankly not too surprising, because frankly, we're not gonna have the budget committee member do anything for about a year and a half, since we just finished our budget process. So at the agenda setting meeting, what we talked about is just suspending the recruitment process for that. And then when we're closer to actually going through the process of re-upping our budget committee members, so we can fill that position at that time.
Is that just a community member that we're looking for to come and fill that? Okay.
Yeah, so, and then from a logistics standpoint, that seemed to make more sense. It's kind of awkward to have somebody join and then not ask them to do anything for a while.
A year and a half.
It's kind of the perfect committee to serve on.
There you go. Hey, guy,
I did have a
Looks
question.
good on the resume.
I have a question about the emergency management. Once we have all the towers up and we have these radios, who actually is gonna be carrying these radios? Which people do you think?
Yeah, so a lot of them are mounted in vehicles.
In vehicles?
And then we do have mobile units as well.
Okay.
And so there's certain people that are assigned as part of their job duties to have that. And then a lot of them, it depends who's working on what jobs. So some of the radios are gonna be used more, you know, if you're working on a particular job and need them. It's not like they have them all the time.
Okay.
It's more of a as-need type basis. Some will have it, like our field customer service folks will have them all the time during the day and so on.
Okay.
So these are like if we have an earthquake and our communication systems are down, those will work in place of that.
Yeah, so the idea is make us more resilient as far as our communication during natural disasters, but it's also, it's a tool, a daily use tool, and so.
Great.
Helps with our communication too, and then keeping familiar with how to use it, so. So yeah, the idea is we're gonna start incorporating that into more of our routine work as well, but we'll have a lot more resilient system.
Okay.
So the towers are all up, everything's working, so.
Oh,
that's
okay.
good. We're doing some of the final programming on the radios, but other than that.
Okay.
So that concludes my report this evening.
Thanks, Todd. Okay, public comment? Unless Ernie wants to say something?
You have the commission
Yeah,
reports. so you-
okay, commission reports. Rusty, do you have anything?
I do not,
Mary?
thank you.
No, I did want to say one thing. So I had changed, this is just to show you the good thing with the office. I had changed my payment to CRW from a credit card to my checking account, and it ended up giving me a letter with a late fee. I mean, something happened in the system. However, when I called up, they took care of it right away. And staff was very nice, and they couldn't figure out what had happened, some glitch in the system, but they took away the fee, and then I just paid online at that point, so they're gonna go back and fix it, and make sure that there's just one thing in the system. But I was very happy with the way the staff handled it, so it was fine.
Good to hear, thank you.
No special treatment, I guess. huh?
Well, you know, the water bill's actually under my husband's name, so that they might not be able
Doesn't
to.
raise a flag.
No, it's even a different
I
last
got a
name.
shut-off notice, because I couldn't remember what month I paid it or whatever, and until I got the shut-off notice, and it was in my son's mail.
Oh.
That's a real good example. You, how about you?
No, I'm
Nothing?
fine.
You're fine? Nothing? Tessa?
I have something.
Yes, I know.
I just wanted to, we discussed this a little bit before the meeting, but I just, and Todd put this in our packet, the SDA, but Commissioner French and I attended the training on Tuesday. It was an all-day training, and wow, it was just very insightful, especially for someone coming onto a public board like this for the first time. It was kind of the how-tos. It was the do's, the don'ts. The two that were leading were very engaging, and some of the legal stuff, no offense, was, it wasn't the most exciting, and she did do it in the morning, so before we ate lunch, and then, veg for the afternoon. But yeah, I think that was a real value, so I appreciate you sending me. Thank you, Todd. I think that all public servants should attend this in some form, so.
And staff, too, yeah.
And staff,
yeah.
yes. There was staff there from some of the special districts.
I mean, it's like, the one gal that really floored me was, I mean, the gal's gotta be 110 or so. She was from a cemetery
Oh, yeah. A
District.
cemetery district.
district, and she was talking about people coming in and taking names and birth and death dates, and then people calling and wanting information.
Public records.
Yeah,
That was,
so that was weird. So it's like, and I hadn't even thought of that.
yeah,
You
for
know.
identity theft.
So if I die, well, I don't wanna be in a cemetery, but if anybody gets stupid and does that, I want my stone to say, I ain't saying. I'm not telling. But it was a good
There was some
question,
good
and we're all,
eye-opening things that
Yeah.
I never realized, and, just even talking about a quorum,
yeah,
when, there were just topics that really defined what that meant, and the majority
Well, the
versus.
one district had 27
Yeah.
27 members on their board.
Wow.
That was, who was?
I can't remember. Was
That's
it
a lot.
no, it was a fire district.
Yeah, but it encompassed different, so each like mini district had
Yeah.
a representative that served on this
To
board.
this,
Oh,
yeah.
to
So it was like
bigger board.
multiple
Oh,
mini
that's
districts or like
interesting.
subsidiaries.
Yeah, 26 or 27, it was
Yeah.
26.
Could you imagine passing something with that? They actually had a rule where it was whoever, like the people that come, the majority,
Yeah.
it's,
Majority of attendees.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's,
yeah.
majority of the attendees
Yeah,
can pass something. So it would behoove you to show up.
I kept thinking, I'm glad we didn't have that many here a few months ago. I mean, just the idea, 26 people on the board, can you imagine getting anything done? I mean, it just seemed absolutely hard, I thought, oh, man.
Then they had some like 3
Yeah,
member boards.
Yeah, there's some
Sandwiches
really,
for that many
really,
people.
really small
Yeah.
boards.
yeah, there were a lot of 3-member boards.
But yeah, super valuable training.
All right, anything else? Going once, going twice? We are adjourned.
All right.